Thanks again for giving us the opportunity to talk today. We just wanted to kind of talk through, with the new emerging permit requirements and how we can help you with your streamlining your compliance and be successful. Krista can also offer some additional services, so just keep that in mind as we kind of talk through today. So this slide here is just, it's a big picture view of 2Inform. It's your single system for MS4 compliance. The main point is that the platform is not just for one program or area or workflow. It connects compliance reporting, field operations, your work tracking is all in one place. And as the teams use more of the system, you reduce the double entry, you improve coordination across your programs, and you just build a stronger foundation for a more efficient, streamlined compliance program. Some of you are using municipal maintenance, some are industrial commercial, some of you are focused more on trash compliance, but just keep in mind that 2Inform is the system for all of your MS4 requirements. And you currently do have access to most all of these modules. I think there's a few of them that you don't have access to, but we can always dive into deeper into any of these individually with you if that's of interest. So regardless of where you are in your maturity journey, not everybody shares the same path, and some move at different paces. So different municipalities may be at different stages across different program areas, and that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the key point here is just to remember that 2Inform can support progress at any stage, from building that reliable GIS foundation to digitizing those workflows and then streamlining compliance and reporting. And then eventually being able to actually use the data to strengthen long-term planning and program effectiveness. So 2Inform delivers a measurable value in the real world. We're supporting, I think, more than over 100 cities and counties and DOTs. I think we're in 22 different states now. And even though every program is a little bit different, one thing that they consistently have in common is that they save time and money by centralizing data, digitizing workflows, and reducing reporting errors and compliance risk. And then that specific saving looks different from organization to the next, but the overall pattern is the same. Spend less time on manual processes and more time on, high value work. So there's two, I know you guys have access to a bunch of the modules. There's two that I wanted to kind of focus on today. I wanted to just briefly talk about today, and that's construction and post-construction. Construction is one of the clearest examples of time savings with 2Inform. Our users save on average about 40 hours per year per construction site by streamlining their inspections, the documentation, the follow-up, and enforcements. And a major part of that efficiency comes from being able to complete inspections and report directly in the field. So that way staff does not have to return to the office to finish paperwork or re-enter notes. This is, one of our, so construction is actually one of our most widely used modules as well. And part of its strength is that it's highly configurable, while still being ready to use out of the box for California construction site programs. This module was developed originally around Caltrans requirements, which gives teams a strong starting point for managing BMP tracking, inspections, communications, enforcements, and any way that aligns with, real world compliance needs. And if anybody has any questions too, please let me know. And then I wanted to focus on construction and post-construction because you guys have all these different modules, they're all kind of intertwined together. And one of the biggest benefits of using different modules in 2Inform is the connection between those modules and specifically the construction and post-construction. So when a construction project is completed and those permanent BMPs are installed, that site and its records can then transition directly into the post-construction module. This creates continuity instead of starting over in a separate system. And this really helps the team avoid double entry and keep project history connected and then manage that long-term compliance, more efficiently. The post-construction module supports two primary workflows. So first off, staff can go directly into the field and perform their inspections of city-owned BMPs. And then the second one is they can use that the private BMP communication workflows to manage the owner outreach and compliance, which also includes our self-certification approach, which greatly reduces staff time spent on those routine private site inspections. Um, the city of Salinas is one shining example of how they've shifted from conducting their own private BMP inspections themselves to requiring the private landowners to actually go out and self-certify that the maintenance has been done and it aligns with the state requirements. One thing that this module is also great at is that communication aspect, and we have in the system now what's called collaboration portal. You guys currently don't have access to it, but we can always talk about turning it on. And essentially, it gives the private landowners a way to submit their certifications through a QR code or a URL link. So with that add-on, the post-construction module just gives you a more structured way to manage both public and then the private compliance over time. And I think we're going to shift over to Krista now, and she's going to talk about trash compliance and Teller and eSwift. Anybody have any questions for me about like anything I talked about or any of the specific modules before Krista takes over?
I have a question, Lance,
Yeah.
regarding the construction module. Do you have any other municipalities? One of the challenges that we have with the construction module is that we track our permit through a separate third-party tracking system. And although I like 2NFORM's platform better, is there any way or do you have any municipalities that you merge that data together with?
Yeah, it depends on what system they're currently using. What are you guys using right now for the permit?
N4.
Infor? Okay. I would have to check with Maggie to see if we have anybody that we've had a direct sync with that. I don't think we have, and Krista, let me know if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever synced directly with Infor. But I mean, softwares generally work well together. So there's definitely a potential for us to sync with that. One of the biggest struggles that we find with groups is like they want an all-encompassing system from permitting to compliance and enforcements, and that just doesn't exist. So we're not a permitting software, but we can definitely sync with that. And primarily, it's just going to be to sync in the initial construction permit, the details of the sites, and things like that. And then you would move from that. Then you would take that information and then go out and do your inspections in 2NFORM. Is that kind of what you were thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the last time, several years ago, we had the conversation with 2NFORM, and it was on the city of Monterey side had issues with sharing the Infor data on the platform. So
Okay.
if you speak to Maggie and you have any other Infor users that have come up with a solution to that, maybe just reach out and follow up. Let us know. I'd be
Yeah.
interested if there are any solutions there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, if is the does Infor sync with your GIS environment by any chance?
It does, but it's not a streamlined process. It's kind of clunky, but yes, it is
Okay.
built in the it is sold as being compatible with GIS, but
Okay, because that would be our first initial idea would be to sync with your GIS and then go from there because we're Esri's preferred stormwater partner. So we can sync with Esri no problem. Syncing with other I know we've done a direct sync with what CityWorks I think we have done before. So it is possible. Sometimes those direct syncs will require a service contract though because it's a lot of work on our end to get that up and running. And then we have to maintain that connection as well. But I'll talk with them and then and see what they say. And Krista, feel free if you have any other comments on that, let you know. You can speak to that.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
yeah.
I have the same question. This is Michael from Monterey County. We use, or our inspectors use Acela automation. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of in the position where I don't necessarily want to ask them to change softwares, do these inspections, but if there's a way to communicate the information they're providing in Acela to connect with the 2NFORM platform, that would be the ideal scenario.
Okay.
Yeah, and to follow up with that, the city of Carmel is looking at new platforms for our construction right now. So are there any that you recommend that work well with 2NFORM? That, I mean, I know as the city, we're not only looking at that, but I thought, from our perspective, what would be a good one that we can suggest?
Are you looking for a new permitting or a new construction inspection?
Con- Construction inspection platform. Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to try to use to inform for the construction inspections?
I don't think it has all the capabilities that we need for our construction, for our building department, but I mean, maybe we should talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, I think that would be worth it because I mean we're the it's the the system's built for California permittees, so I don't know, and we have a I mean we've configured a lot for the city of Salinas for the construction, and the construction module themselves, the inspection forms and things like that are highly configurable. So there's more than likely it can, but I think I know I think Krista, you and them are currently working on a service contract, so we'll have that conversation about what's missing in the module that you would potentially need. Instead of having to go out and pay for an additional software, you already have the construction module. So it'd be worth it for you guys for you to use the construction that you already have.
Right. Okay. All right. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
Last comment, I did want to say that this last year, Monterey did upload all our post-construction projects in the PCR module, and it does a wonderful job at tracking and annual reporting. So I would recommend it to anybody. I want to follow on with the construction just because the PCR module worked so well. So just
And they
wanted to
do.
share my kudos.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And they do work well together, I will say. And even if you're like, same thing with like if you're doing catch basin inspections and you happen to find an illicit discharge and you log it, it's just another way that they kind of speak to each other. So we definitely appreciate it. And let me know if you wanted to have the conversation about the collaboration portal. We can talk about maybe, offering it to one group specifically or talk with Monterey One as a whole and say, hey, here's what it would additionally cost to turn this capability on for you. And then you would have that QR code and that URL link, which would greatly reduce the amount of time that it takes you to it just makes it so much easier when you're doing that communication. You can um, um, avoid the paper chasing, I guess, and just the drudgery of like, where's this email at? Or, did I mail this out and trying to remember all of that. So everything just stays in one system. So just let us know. All right. Sorry, Krista.
Oh, no, no, I'm glad. Yeah, any other questions before we kind of change gears and talk about trash a little bit?
And we should have some time at the end too, I would imagine, for any other follow. And you reach out to me. Everybody should have my contact information. So please reach out if you want to talk specifically about anything.
And I'll just verify, is my screen being shared okay? Is there a little cartoon of trash up there?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. All right. Yeah, thanks again all for having us. It was really great to kind of hear your inner talkings too of things you're working on right now. And I was looking at your budget and I know everybody's budget is stretched thin these days, and 2NFORM is one of your license fees. And one of the things that we want to talk about is how you can get more out of that to help your stormwater program, hopefully make your life a little easier, protect yourself. I know from working at a city that you sometimes have a lot of turnover of people that work on stormwater related issues. So how can we, build a stronger system and more robust? So um, I think a lot of you have met with Lance in the last year, and he's always talking about our software 2NFORM. I'm here to remind you that we have staff in Santa Cruz and we help do services. We can help do assessments. We can help build some of your strategies. That would be a small separate scope of services, but given, you guys are in our backyard and some of our earliest adopters, we just really, want to do whatever we can to help you succeed. We know you're small municipalities with small budgets, but however we can help you guys, we would really be interested in doing that. So when I talk to phase two permittees, I get a lot of anxiousness hearing about how are we going to track our trash and hit these goals. to give a quick overview, some of you may have been, at your city and in your position back in 2016 when the State Water Board sent out these 13383 letters about these trash provisions. That came out in 2016, kind of put the wheels in motions for cities to think about how can we achieve zero trash from our city entering the waterways by 2030. Back then, it felt like forever, right? We had, over 10 years to figure it out, but now it's coming down that pipeline. And, how are we going to show this? So, I really love this cartoon that has been drawn of how does trash get into our creeks, because it shows it's from so many different sources and it's a hard problem to tackle. One of the things that you have access to right now is the trash module in 2NFORM to track your progress, catalog your data, show how you're doing towards your overall goal to show your regulator. So just wanted to kind of talk through some of the things that you can use right now. Back in 2017, all the permittees had to come up with a trash implementation plan. So the state, right, you have this massive problem. Let's keep trash out of our waterways. How do you do it? The state recommended you go track one, and that's using structural controls only. You put these different structural controls every catch basin or drop inlet at your terminal pipes to catch trash that are 5 millimeters or bigger. So that's one track. Track two is the bigger umbrella of strategy where you can use your structural controls at strategic locations, but you can also leverage some of these other institutional controls that you're already doing, street sweeping, litter pickups, your outreach. It was really cool to hear what a robust outreach program you have and the engagement you have there. So the track two is this bigger umbrella. Let's use everything that we can to tackle this problem. Cities need to make this decision themselves. Sometimes, we see some cities that maybe put in as track one and they want to change to track two because the operations and maintenance to maintain a robust system of structural controls can be a bit challenging for cities. So regardless of what track you go, by 2030, you have to show the state regulator your full capture system equivalency. So if you go track two, you still need to show that you have low litter, it's not entering the waterway. So how do we do that? In the 2NFORM platform, we have a way to track your progress. We have this big picture of like, hey, let's collect the data. Where are our trash prone areas? Where do we have it treated or low litter? And how do we show progress over time? So part of the implementation plan back in 2017 was to designate your priority land use layers, the PLU. These are areas that were composed of cities were very involved in this process. This is composed of your land use that's more prone to generate litter. That would be your commercial corridors, parks, schools, bus stops, areas where there's lots of people, right? Multifamily residential. So in this first map that we're showing, the white areas are your prone areas for trash. As you collect data and implement controls, the green areas are showing it's treated or low litter. So over time, you want to be able to have the data to show your regulator, your leadership, how is our progress. You can also use this as a strategic planning tool of like, hey, maybe we need more controls in the middle of our city, whether that be a physical structure or different practices. This will help you plan to get to that 0% compliance. We do that in a map view. We also create these, as you collect data and catalog it, you have automatic access to your progress over time. This shows each year your trash. This would be the bars, your PLU area, and the colors, the dark green represents treated, light green in progress, and white untreated. So you can see over time, how are we doing? The yellow line is the milestones that you decided for your implementation plan. And these are things that if you collect data in the system, it will automatically show your progress. So just wanted to touch on that because that's been one of the questions we've heard from a lot of folks. And I know back in 2017, we worked with Mr. Swimp to collect some initial data, some observation data in the PLU area. So that is an overview of trash. I'll pause there if there's questions and can show you where you can access this in your platform.
I have a question regarding how the municipal maintenance um platform ties in with trash. Like we just uploaded, or we're in the process of putting in our street sweeping data, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering if that will show a reduction in our trash module.
Yeah, that is a good question. So street sweeping obviously is one of the major controls that we can implement to reduce trash and sediment. The modeling for trash is not tied directly to street sweeping. Your street sweeping, as you start to enter data in the municipal maintenance module about your street sweeping, that will get automatically modeled for sediment reduction in Teller. It won't get modeled for trash. So the trash data, how you will likely show that is if I go back into the trash compliance module, if you are, this is our fictional city of clean water. Say, can you see my cursor moving around here? Maybe not. Say you're in the
Yeah.
middle of the city and you implement a really intense street sweeping program. We're going to go out every 2 weeks and sweep. What you would want to do is do observational data of that area for low litter. So what we're looking at right now is trash assessments. And this is somebody going out with a mobile application, driving your PLU areas and characterizing trash condition. So if you have a really robust street sweeping program, I would think that your trash observations will be green. So green is good and red is bad in this legend here. So data collected in this module will then feed into your trash reductions. What we'll look at. But the municipal maintenance, street sweeping, we need data on trash condition. We can't just assume that the sweepers are picking up trash.
Okay, and I assume that stays the same with all non-structural programs such as litter pickups and our adopt a catch basin program. Uh,
Yes.
it's all measured through the OPTA surveys. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so if you have full capture systems, so as I toggle at the top from trash assessments to full capture systems here on the map, these would be your, if you have structural controls that are meet the state regulator requirements, and you can go out and have a assessment of those. And I'm going to turn on the drainage area. So if we zoom in, this treatment vault here at the bottom, its drainage area is this big area. If you go out and assess that and inventory it and assess it, it's in good condition, this whole area, if it's PLU, will be considered treated. So that's how the model works. You have to have observation data on your full capture system or characterize of the roads adjacent to those PLU.
Another question. So if you have a full capture system, you've inspected it, it's functional, but you have OFTA surveys that show that there's high trash accumulation. Is there a precedent? Does the structural BMP supersede the observation?
Yes. So
Okay.
if you have, and that's where it comes into place where if you have some problem area in your city and you can't, every time you do observational data, it's high trash. If you put a structural control that treats that area, the structural controls trumps the observational data for the trash assessments of the area, if that makes sense. Because we
Okay.
know we have a structure downstream that's capturing that trash.
I have a question. We've had kind of internal discussions about one of our proposed projects and the impact it'll have on our PLUs. Does the software kind of let you play around with if we put a trash capture device here, it'll have this much impact?
That is a good question. This one, it does not have a scenario planning for trash built out yet, but you could play around with the system and enter it and call it a name of,
Yeah.
test, and then do the increments of inventorying it and give it an assessment, and then you could see how much it would have. And that's something, I worked at a city in Region 2, which had trash requirements pushed up ahead of the rest of the state. And that was something, okay, we're going to do an assessment. We're going to put in this. How much progress will this give us? And it was all a back and forth email of GIS files with the consultant. What does it look waiting for them to model it? Like you could play around with the system to do this yourself and see how much treatment that would give you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I toggled into the annual reporting module trash reduction because we went from collecting data. We can do that in the field at our FCS assessments. We can do that by driving our PLU streets. That comes in, we collect it all through an Esri app. It comes in automatically and then automatically gets modeled here. So you can see how am I doing with progress. So these colors are summarized in this table below. The dark green is, and these are all just our PLU areas for the city. The dark green shows this is our treated, we don't need to worry about that. The green areas are in progress, so we may have done some observations there, the light green, I should say, where we had, maybe sometimes we had good condition, bad condition, so we're not really confident is low litter, there's no structural control there. And then the white are our areas that are still untreated. So this gives us some good information of where do I need to prioritize my resources, where do I need extra controls, and then need to move this little thing at the top. There we go. And here's the chart that I was mentioning to you guys earlier. This is always available for you to look at. I think the Mr. Swimp, there hasn't been a lot of trash data collection for several years. So you need to go back in time to, I think, 2017 or 2018, where there's data in there, and you will see that some of this information is in your portal right now. Yeah, so that is a general summary of trash. Is there any other questions about trash out there?
I'm looking at the charts, and so there's low litter and full capture. So in theory, from a regulatory perspective or software perspective, is that essentially like a checked box, and then the remaining area, like the white, is kind of what you have to take care of for any proposed projects?
Yeah, great question, Michael. Thanks for asking that. So yeah, the bar itself is your PLU area as a city. So this is what was designated in 2017 or 18, whenever your implementation plan. In the top right, it says the total PLU area in this city has 2,000. So the bar chart you can see is set to just above 2,000. That's our PLU area. And then the dark green, those are the areas that we've hit our where we feel are really treated, whether that's through a full capture system or low litter observations consistently. The pie chart on the right is showing for these dark green areas, what's the distribution? How are we doing that? And this is what I think is a really powerful tool for you to take to your regulator for full capture system equivalency. This is, we are achieving our milestones, we're achieving our treated areas through the dotted is low litter. So those are your trash observations, or the diagonal lines full capture system. Every city will be different depending on what your systems are. But this is, if you going back to how do you show the regulator you're in compliance, this is a great tracking tool for you to enter your data, catalog condition, and demonstrate we got this area covered, right?
Thanks.
A question on the progress PLUs.
Yeah.
As you increase your observations, and I believe there's a tracking in here for confidence rating, the more observations, the higher the confidence.
Yes.
My question is, does that turn that into treated once you reach a certain confidence rating?
Yes. Yeah. So if you do a bunch of observations, say you go out before your street sweeper and you have like a trashy area, then you go out after your street sweeper and it's clean, you're going to have, at first iteration, you're going to probably have a yellow line and a green line. So that's going to tell you in progress. But if you always go out after your street sweeper, or if you always go out when it's in low condition, the number of observations with low condition will give us greater confidence that we are in compliance. And there should be, I need to refresh here. So yes, I don't know who made the comment, but I've gone to the inputs tab at the top. So this is first, I'm looking at trash conditions. So this is looking at doing our OVTA, which is one of the state ways to do your trash and just on-land visual trash assessments. We did on-land visual trash assessments throughout the city, and this is telling us the condition. And then we could also, here is the FCS drainage area. These will trump, if we have a green area here for an FCS, it will trump any type of yellow area here, if that makes sense. So the full capture system supersedes the OVTA. And then when we go to certainty, this gives us our certainty of the area. So the darker, the more certain we are. And municipalities you should be able to, I think there's a setting that we want to be within 80%. Like you can kind of control your legend within this is a very high confidence, 90% that this is low litter, right? You can change that confidence rating for what you as a city want to achieve.
And once you achieve say a 90% confidence rating and you cease doing OVTA surveys, does that go down over time or is that locked in? What's the best practice for managing those polygons?
Right. That is a good question of like how do we remove these from our need to continue to assess all the time? For your full capture systems, it would be going back to this one, it would be best practice to observe those once a year, just to make your staff might be doing that anyway, just to make sure they're clear of trash, to make sure that they have the capacity to treat that next rain event as is. And then the other areas, I think as you achieve 90%, those would be, I think you can go back to your progress map treated and you talk to the regulator, like we know this area is low litter for 90%. We'll do one assessment per year. And it would be something that wouldn't take too much of your time, but would continue to demonstrate compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, so if anyone is interested in any type of support with doing any of these assessments, we can help you with that. Just feel free to contact me or Lance. We can train your staff to do it. We can go with your staff to do it. What we do is usually drive the PLU areas with our mobile application, 2 people in a car to collect and characterize data. We can also go to any of your full capture systems and show how to assess those. So you can populate your data to get a map like this of how are we doing towards our milestones. All right. And then to change gears here, I think before the meeting, Erica shared there were a couple questions around the group in general about 2NFORM for talking a little bit about eSwift, talking about asset management. So I think someone brought up the new permit coming and you guys were talking a little bit about your outfall pipes, like the new phase 2 permit is being held up and it's delayed, but we know by previewing that asset management is going to be one of the next requirements for phase 2s. And what we have designed working with other cities is a really robust asset management system. We have worked with a lot of cities across the country that for their stormwater system, they have an Excel file on somebody's local drive with where assets are. They have a GIS file that somebody else created. We have all these disparate files for where the assets are, what they are, their condition, and it's not a standardized database that tells us the information we need that we can use at our fingertips. So we created this, we call it eSwift Enhanced Stormwater Foundational Template. I even forget what our long acronym is for, but the eSwift it's a blueprint for your asset management data. It gives you a way to combine all of those disparate sets that you have and turn it into a meaningful database that we can look at where are our assets? How old are they? What condition are they in? And, looking at it over time, where do we have prone areas that are going to fail? And just getting it on the map is one of the biggest things with it fully attributed. So we did a lot of painstaking time of building a GIS file, which can be used as a spreadsheet. What information do we need about each of these assets? What format does it need to be in to turn it into something meaningful that we can use for our stormwater management? So that's a little bit about eSwift. Let me know what questions you guys have there.
Do you have an idea of what percentage of your 2NFORM users are using the eSwift template?
I do not have that number, but maybe Lance does.
I can quickly give you an estimate though. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It looks like about 20%, 20 to 30% are currently utilizing our eSwift sync. Give or take a percent or two.
Great. Yeah, Monterey switched over to it last year, and I love the data format. The challenges that we have are, again, syncing with our other source programs. But as far as the 2NFORM platform, I would highly recommend it for using your mobile apps and data management. It's a great foundation.
Yeah, I think right now you all are the only group here that is currently utilizing it. Yeah. And real quick, so Soledad, I know Soledad is here. Are you all part of the Mr. Swimp group as well?
Soledad is not a member of Mr. Swimp.
Okay.
Um,
I thought I maybe had something wrong in my notes. I was like, I have to change that. So, but Soledad, you are a customer, so if all this applies to you as well. So, please reach out if you have any questions, and I'll be in contact as well when renewal time comes, and just kind of checking in and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
Erica, I have a question regarding if one of the members wanted to utilize 2NFORM for field inspection services. Is there an agreement through Mr. Swimp that we could utilize, or would that be something that we would have to sole source on our own agencies?
through 2NFORM.
Yeah, to use them for inspection services.
So as it stands, the way that I've allocated out the responsibility for 2NFORM fees is based on the number of modules you're using. So if we're adding and then you're the only user, then we could make sure that that's focused on, or that is the city's responsibility. Is that what you're asking? Or
I'm just asking if we would have to execute a contract between the city of Monterey and 2NFORM, or if we can go through the Mr. Swimp group, if we have an existing contract with them that would provide those services. And I'm strictly speaking inspection services, like if we wanted trash inspections, or if our structural BMPs.
you mean to have 2NFORM staff conduct those?
Yes.
Okay, well, Lance, you and I can chat further about that unless you've got input at the moment.
So I think typically, historically, we've done is we've worked directly with the city because I know like right now we've got a contract going with the city of Carmel. I think that right now is probably the easiest and best way to do it.
Okay.
I-
I can talk to Mary offline then.
but yeah,
we did in 2017, and I've been at Second Nature a long time, so I'm I didn't work directly on this, but I think Jeff Condit was the point of contact at Mr. Swimp at the time, and we did do a contract with Mr. Swimp to do trash assessment. So when I was mentioning, you can go back in time into your portal and look at If you go back, this one, our demo one doesn't go back that far, but you can go back to 2017 and you'll see this map will be colorful. And that was data collection that Second Nature did with Mr. Swimp. So that has happened in the past. I don't know if that's helpful for the current way the budget is built.
Yeah, and I think it would be more beneficial if everybody in the group wanted a specific service. Like if you wanted us to do trash assessments for the entire, group, then, but I think that's more of an internal conversation for you all. If you guys would, if Erica, if you want us to offer, some budgetary money to, do services, then we'd be more than happy to do those. But typically it makes it easier to just do it city by city.
I'm gonna say, I believe a couple years ago, we contracted directly with them for some training. And I know, hey Moises, hey Carla, I know Soledad contracted with 2NFORM separately to get trained 2 years ago on the BMP inspections, the structural BMPs. So that's how agencies were doing that.
I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism that we could use to sole source, if there's an existing agreement between Mr. Swimp and 2NFORM and say we wanted, and I'm thinking, if we wanted to do the PCR inspections or construction inspections, or what I'm really thinking is detention basins, but we haven't discussed that today. But is there a mechanism that we could use if there's an existing agreement that we could use to justify a sole source? That way we wouldn't have to competitively bid it and go through the whole contractual
Procurement policy of a piggyback clause. Because they bid it, so they bid, solicited competitively, you can piggyback on that solicitation.
Yes, we do.
Maybe.
Okay.
And what's your threshold for competitive bidding?
Is that a question for us?
Yeah,
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh,
That was
sorry.
her.
I should know. I will have to follow up with you offline on that.
Okay, yeah, well, and I can chat further with Lance on if we wanted to do another baseline on trash observation. Looking forward to the new permit potentially coming that way. We've got a more up-to-date baseline.
Okay.
And then I'll bring it back to the committee and talk about it, and then we can also, Lance and I can drill down into if that were to happen for you, what would the individual costs look like? Which of course will vary amongst jurisdictions, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, and Krista would definitely need to help with determining the cost for something like that. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The other question we got prior to this meeting was about how the model works, about how do we generate our baseline data. So real quick, if we go back, when you're in your platform, when we look at all of these little icons here to the right, this is where we put our data in, right? You collect data in the field, but then it all gets modeled in these rectangles on the left side, right? So when we talk about the model, you'll find the information under program impact. So the runoff reductions, particulate reductions, this is the model working. So all that data that you put into it for your BMPs or street sweeping gets modeled here. So just to touch on what are baseline runoff and pollutant loads and how do we get those. So that is if there was no controls in place, if you didn't have ABMP or any kind of street sweeping going on, what would the runoff volume be and what would your particulate loads? So how we do that is we stack on a bunch of different land use layers. What are the soils? How fast does it infiltrate? This is publicly available. What is the impervious coverage? If you have more impervious area, you're going to have more runoff. What is the slope? If you're in a really flat area versus a really steep area, it's going to run off more and faster, right? And then we look at what are the historical rain records. We use a certain prison rainfall. How much does it rain on average? How big is that rain event? And then those are the layers that go in as the inputs. And then we model how much runoff. So you can see here we have this little grid, right, with different colors, and the darker is more runoff than less. And like, why is it on a grid, right? So if anyone's ever done a plant trisect in biology class where you put your grid down and you count how many native or invasive plants are in that grid. It's that same idea. We have a big area of your entire city with all these different layers stacked. We put a grid over it, and then in GIS, these grids, we model underneath that what would the runoff be by a 30 by 30 square. So we can increase the resolution of what our runoff predictions are instead of just doing the whole city and averaging it. We drill down onto that raster basis. So that's for runoff. And then for particulates, we look at what is your land use. There's a certain concentration that we expect at different land use, right? There's going to be more particulates at an industrial site than there would be at a single family residential. So that same grid base for the modeling, but based on the land use. And so that gives us how much particulates we think are running off. And that's just your baseline. And then if you have a bunch of structural BMPs inventoried and assessed, if you are doing street sweeping, if you have disconnected parcels, you can put all of that in the modules into 2NFORM, and then those get removed from, we can assess how much volume is being removed and how much particulates. And so that's how we get to these numbers that we show in 2NFORM. And I'll show you, if we go into 2NFORM itself, if we click on it, we've gone into our runoff reduction. Same thing as the trash. You'll see at the top a bunch of different tabs. This is our progress map. You can turn on the legend. So the progress map, the darker area is showing where we probably have BMPs here that are infiltrating. We can look at our chart. So over time, how much have we removed? The pie chart shows what actions we're doing, what management actions are attributing to these reductions. For this city, it's centralized BMPs and decentralized BMPs are what are accounting for those reductions. The other thing I just wanted to point out were the inputs, right? These are the things I just was showing you what goes into that model for our baseline runoff and reduction. So this is this shows the different soils distribution. And then if I go to the top right, you can see there's a drop down. We can look at those other layers. And so you guys can go back and open your own city's data to look at this. This will show us the impervious area, how connected it is. If we had, the city wasn't as connected through impervious area or had a big green belt, like it would be separated out here, but this is very connected. And then the land use. So these are the key inputs that are driving our modeling for what baseline runoff is, and then once you put in those BMPs, how those reductions are formed.
Great. Well, thank you for that explanation. I'm looking at time. I think we should probably start wrapping up the presentation and have some final questions if we can. I know you have a couple more slides probably, Krista, but if we could.
That was it. So if there's any, thanks for, we're kind of taking a lot of time here. So let's, any last questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, Rebecca.
Is it possible to receive any error statistics for the models? Because sometimes it seems like our inputs don't change much, but the model outputs change annually. And that might be because you're using different layers.
So repeat the question. What you would like the error, like how accurate is the model itself?
Yeah, just so when we're submitting our annual reporting, if we can see if should be like a plus or minus on what we're reporting, or what the confidence level is if you're running 95 or something like that.
Yeah, that we don't have that in this model, and I can talk to our dev team about that. But I think if you are seeing different values from year over year, it would be worth looking at the reduction of is likely tied to the condition of your BMP or different practices, because your baseline won't change. It's what is the condition of what your baseline won't change unless the area of your city changes, more or less, because you can see here the baseline is consistent every single year. The reductions change based on your management actions. So those changes were likely due to maybe the condition of a BMP wasn't as good as it was in a previous year, or vice versa.
Is Maggie the best contact if we have questions regarding individual statistics?
You
Or should
know,
we just go to the help center?
the help center is the best because we have someone monitoring that every day. We get a notification and then we direct it to whoever would be best equipped to answer that. So some of your modeling questions might go to one of our modelers and they'll respond to you.
Okay, so if we,
Yeah,
okay, so we'll go to the help center.
we all get when the help center article or help center request comes in, I get a notification. Christy gets a notification. Catherine, Maggie, Nicole, like literally almost the entire team gets a notification. So then we can then designate, okay, who's gonna take charge of this and go from there. So plus I'm East Coast, so if it's an East Coast issue, then I'll start working on it if it's in my time and vice versa, even though I work crazy hours all the time. So even if it's outside of my regular hours, just don't feel like you can't reach out to me directly. But yeah, the help center is definitely the quickest way to get to who you need to talk to.